Hey folks, and welcome to the Truck King YouTube channel and another pickup truck comparison. Today we are looking at this, the freshly redesigned 2022 Nissan Frontier Pro 4X versus the 2022 Ford Ranger with the Splash package. Now in this video we're going to dive into all the features on these trucks, but then we're also going to fully load them with payload and find out which one does better when it's working hard. Let's start by talking about the powertrains, and both of these brands only offer one powertrain in these midsize trucks. So over here in the Ranger, we have a turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine that's making 270 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque, and it's sent through a 10-speed automatic. Over here in the Nissan, it's a different strategy. That's a naturally aspirated 3.8-liter V6. It's making 310 horsepower and 281 pound-feet of torque. So yes, in the power department, these two are similarly matched. Oh yeah, and over here in the Frontier, we have a 9-speed auto. Now let's look at the two specific trucks we have here today. So this is the Ranger with the Splash package, and Splash is all about the way this truck looks. You're getting the graphics down the side, always orange and black. You're getting these orange nostrils up here in the grille, and then a whole bunch of black accents also in the grille and with the mirror caps. Now on the interior, we have a fully loaded Lariat today, so we get the leather seats with nice orange contrast stitching, and then we also have the FX4 package here today, so this truck is ready to go off-road. And oh yeah, matte black 18-inch wheels as well. And of course you can let us know, but I think the Splash package looks pretty sharp here on the Ranger. This is the Frontier Pro 4X with the leather luxury package, a fully loaded truck here in Canada. Now first of all, let me talk Pro 4X and FX4 because these packages are very similar. You're getting big exposed tow hooks, skid plates underneath, all-terrain tires, a rear locking differential, and then of course unique suspension tuning. Now overall, the styling on this Frontier, I think they really made it look sharp with the redesign. And hey, it's interesting because this Frontier is freshly redesigned. That Ranger is in its last year of its life cycle and it's about to get a redesign, but that's not what we're comparing right now. So now I want you to tell me, look at these two trucks we have today and let me know which one looks better. Now let's talk towing and payload, and in both areas, the Ford Ranger is better. With tow rating, this Ford can have a max of up to 7,500 pounds. Over there on the Frontier, you're talking about 6,490 pounds with four-wheel drive. That's the max tow. Now, when it comes to payload, yeah, the Ford is better too. The Frontier has 1,030 pounds of payload based on its door jam sticker, whereas over here in the Ford, we have 1,478. And keep in mind, these are both top trim trucks with the off-road packages. So this is a really apples to apples comparison. And when you look at it that way, the Ranger's numbers are quite a bit better. And I'll be very curious to fully load these trucks with payload and see if it actually feels better in the real world. Let's take a look at the back seat of these two trucks right now, and these are actually some of the smallest mid-sized trucks on the market. So here in the Frontier, we have two lower latch anchors for child seats, and what I do like about this truck is that the back seats, the back of the seats fold forward, so you can get to the top tethers. Those are nice and convenient to get to, but then also, oops, the seat bottoms flip up, and they give you these nice plastic storage bins. So you do have a couple options back here. Now this is, if I can get this back down, 33.2 inches of rear seat legroom. And this seat is set up in my position. And let's see, I have just enough headroom. I stand at 6'2". There is this nice sort of impression up here in the roof, and that helps. Obviously, knee room leaves something to be desired. Like I said, this is where I was sitting, so this seat could be pushed forward more. But yeah, I think anyone who's a little bit taller, 6 foot plus, you're going to be a little bit tight back here. Plus, the floor is a little tall, so my legs feel a little bit high up. And now let me go grab my big rear-facing child seat, and we'll see how that fits. So this is the Even Flow Platinum, and you'll see right away that there's no chance it's fitting in here without me adjusting the front seat. So we'll go all the way forward to make it easy on ourselves. And I mean, these are the biggest child seats you're ever gonna have, is the rear facings, but they do take up quite a bit of space. And the big question always is, once you install it, how far forward do you have to move that front seat to make sure that you're comfortable? And I will give you the answer to that in just a second. There we go. So look, I bought myself a few inches here. I'll go climb in the front now though and see how comfortable I am. So we move that back about there. We don't want them to be touching. We go by the sheet of paper rule, so a sheet of paper can fit between them. And I basically don't fit. My knees are jammed into the dashboard. Absolutely jammed. So this just goes to show you that, yeah, if you want to have that big rear-facing child seat, you better have somebody small to sit up here in the front of it. And now let's go do the same stuff in the Ranger and see if it's any better. Now let's take a look at the Ranger, and these two trucks are quite similar back here, although the Ranger is bigger. This is 34.5 inches of rear seat legroom. Now with the baby seat situation, they're the exact same. We have two lower latch anchors. The back seat in the Ranger comes down, although I'll point out the entire back seat comes down, unlike the Frontier, which is 60-40 split. We have three top tethers right in the wall, very easy to get to. I love that. And then, just like in the Ranger, or in the Frontier, the seat bottom comes up, and you get these nice plastic storage bins underneath your seat. That is convenient. And now I'll climb in and see how I fit. Well, this is an inch and change more legroom, and I definitely fit better. This again is my seating position. I actually have space here. My head is not touching the ceiling, and the floor is actually a little bit lower than in the Frontier. Overall, I am actually fairly comfortable back here. I'll give it to the Ranger. This is bigger than I expected. Let me go get the child seat now though, and we'll see how that fits. Okay, once again, monster rear-facing child seat. Almost fits without me having to move the seat, but I gotta, always nice to give yourself a few extra inches to work with when you're installing these things. Alright, so that's great. Take that too. Give it the old heave-ho. And now let's go see how the front looks. So I can move this back a little bit, pop myself some space. And would you look at that? My knees are certainly close to the dash, but they're not jammed into the dash like they were in the Frontier. It's a little more uncomfortable than I would normally be without a child seat behind me, but in this truck I could actually do a long drive like this. In the Frontier I just straight up couldn't. So that's definitely worth considering, especially if you got little kids and you want one of these two trucks. All right, folks, and now we are out here driving in the Ford Ranger, and this truck is fully loaded. You can see here, we loaded it up with all of this rubber that I just purchased. We bought the rubber for payload testing. That is 12 sheets of 3/4 inch thick rubber, 6x4 in size, and the total weight there, 1,164 pounds. They're 97 pounds each. So yeah, we got quite a bit of weight. Now with 1164 back there, and then, you know, about 500 pounds or more of Elmer's up here, we are overloading both of these trucks. There is no question about that. Not by a huge amount, but by a few hundred pounds. And, you know, I'm curious to see in the real world how that feels. Now, before we talk about how the suspension feels, I want to talk about the power, and we have to start with a 0 to 60 run. So I'm just coming up to a safe spot in the road here. Now here in the Ranger, we do have sport mode, so I am able to put it down into sport, come into a stop, and we will time this run, and then of course we'll also time the run in the Frontier, so we'll be able to compare the power. And whenever you say ready, Matt, I'm good.
Okay, 0 and ready for the race.
Here we go.
0 to 60. Well, it took a while to kind of spool up there.
It does.
And there's 62, 72, 81, 90, and hell, there's 100.
Nice.
9 seconds.
Nice, on 9 seconds. That's not bad at all, especially considering how loaded up we are. And like you said, Matt, it didn't feel super strong off the line, but you have to wait for that turbo to spool up, and when it hit, it felt really good.
I thought for a second you just weren't into it, and then when I realized what I felt, I was like, oh, okay. That was a little more dramatic than I expected.
There might have been a moment of traction control where it did cut the power just because it was going to spin that rear end too, because we're just in two-wheel drive, but we'll do that the same in both trucks. But I'm very curious to see the outcome, because the Frontier on paper has the most power in the whole midsize segment. On the flip side, the Ranger has always, in my opinion, just felt very powerful, even despite its numbers at 270 horse. So we will compare that very soon once we're in the Frontier, but let's keep driving in the Ranger now and talk about how it feels. Well, we mentioned the power, and it feels fine here in the Ranger, so how about the suspension? Well, the best word I could use, Matt, is floaty. You really feel every movement accentuated. It's got quite a bit of body roll to it, so it's not a very precise feeling drive. On the flip side, though, it's comfortable, right? We're hitting bumps and divots and potholes, and it's not like it's super stiff for hitting the bump stops or anything like that. So, yeah, so far, pretty good here in the Ranger.
By the time we got to the bottom of your driveway, you could feel the time of drive we were about to have with the payload in versus this thing when it's empty.
Yeah.
The Ranger definitely has a very truck-y attitude when it drives empty.
Very
so
fair,
now
yeah.
it's comfortable.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't necessarily want to be hauling around this much weight all the time either.
Yeah, that is safe to say. Here comes another new test we've never done on the channel before, an interior noise test. Now, I actually downloaded a decibel meter app on my phone. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drive on the exact same stretch of road. That stretch includes a train track crossing and a big hill. We're gonna be totally silent. HVAC is off, radio is off, and we're gonna see the max dBs in here in the Ranger, and then we'll try it in the Frontier too and see which one's louder. So
get ready for the most boring 1 second of video, or 1 minute of video ever.
Exactly.
All right,
so,
dead silence starts in 3, 2.
Okay, cool. Well, what was the max there?
All right. So we peaked at 80 decibels.
Wow, okay.
Our minimum was 45, and we averaged 71 decibels.
Did you notice there was the peak coming up the hill?
The peak was pretty much right away on the train tracks.
On the train tracks.
It was right over those first few bumps, yeah.
Okay, and now I'm trying to be consistent here too. So I crossed the tracks at about 40 kilometers an hour, and then I got up to 60, and I did my best to hold at 60, including all the way up the hill. So once again, we'll do it again in the Frontier, and we'll compare.
Yeah.
So we just switched our mats from the Ranger over to the Nissan, and before we take away, we'll just look at the beds really quickly. So here in the Ford Ranger, you get a very basic bed. You do get a couple of hard tie-down points, one in each corner. There are those kind of punch-outs, so you could add more tie-downs if you want, but besides that, there's no other features here. No lighting, no movable tie-downs, no plugs, and all of that stuff is over here in the Frontier. You get that movable tie-down rail, which is really nice. Down in there is a 400-watt plug. You still get a hard point in every single corner, a hard tie-down point, and you get LED lights. So considering that the Ranger is the more expensive truck, well, the Nissan definitely has the better bed because you get more features. Okay, folks, well, we just did the swap over. We took the rubber out of the Ranger, and it's here in the Frontier, so we are fully loaded. We are more overloaded here in the Frontier, and here we go, Matt.
Ready for the race. Okay.
Hitting it.
Oh, a little bit of traction control.
Definitely jumps harder off
50,
the line.
75, 80, 90, 100. Okay. So at 100, if I can get it to focus up, there we go. 10.1 seconds. So we were a whole second slower.
Interesting. And so my take on that, Matt, was there is no doubt the Nissan jumps harder off the line. There's more there right away. But when the Ford power hits, it feels more powerful. I mean, it has more torque. The Nissan has more horsepower, but that's my takeaway is that, you know, that initial hit, you want the naturally aspirated, but over overall, the turbo is more powerful and quicker.
This had so much torque on the line. Like we heard the ABS kick in
Totally.
to try and compensate. Whereas in the Ford, it did, but not until that power band came on with the turbo. So this definitely feels like you got more of that punch.
And I mean, that's at the end of the day an interesting thing to always compare in the real world, because Nissan always reminds us that this truck has the most horsepower in the midsize segment, but now we can see that always doesn't mean it's going to be the quickest when it's working. So as we continue driving here in the Frontier, there are quite a few differences for sure. The first one Matt and I both noticed is that the Frontier doesn't roll nearly as much. It doesn't feel as kind of loose and washy as the Ford did. Everything in this truck feels a little tighter, feels a little more controlled, and from behind the wheel, it just makes it a bit of a calmer experience overall, right? I'm not working in this truck at all to just keep on driving down the road.
It feels heavier, but it feels planted.
Okay, decibel test time here in the Frontier. We have everything shut off, same thing, radio off, fan off, phones in the same position, and same stretch of road. Here we go, let's see what's
I might have lost a few of you on the last one, so I'm gonna say this is the most exhilarating moment of the video.
Here we go.
Here we go, and 3, 2,
All right,
So we had a maximum decibel level of 80, minimum 54, and we averaged 74 decibels on the drive versus the Ford Ranger's 71. Same max on the railroad tracks. The exact same.
On the railroad tracks.
But we averaged 74 over here and we averaged 71 over there. And I think it was engine.
Yeah, and I would back it up too. Just from a general standpoint, the Frontier feels louder than the Ford does. Absolutely.
The Ford's minimum was also 10 decibels less than the Ranger at any given point.
Interesting. So now the price difference isn't huge. The Ford Ranger, as it sits today, is about $53,000 Canadian, a little bit more, whereas the Nissan Frontier is about $51,500. So, you know, not quite $2,000 separates them, but you're right, Matthew, that the Frontier starts to look more attractive when you consider that it's less expensive and you're getting a couple of features that you straight up can't get over there in the Ford Ranger. And I think this leads us into our outro, and so now let's get home and we'll tell you which truck we would pick. Well, we have arrived at the end of this video, folks, and I have a couple takeaways. First of all, if you buy a Nissan Frontier Pro 4X or a Ford Ranger FX4 and fully load it to max payload, you're gonna be fine. Both of these trucks handled well at the limit. Now let's break it down a little further. This Frontier offers better bang for your buck, a nicer interior, and just more features, plus more horsepower. On the flip side, over here in the Ford, you're getting more towing, more payload, and more space if you're a larger person or you have a family. So you need to decide what works for you. If you're asking me to put my money down on the table, I would be driving home with a brand new Ford Ranger, and mostly that's because I'm big and I have kids and I appreciate the interior size of this thing. So that is it for this one. Of course, now I need to hear from you. Which one of these two trucks would you buy? As always, while you're down below, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member, and then come back here to Truck King to see what we are testing next. See ya.